Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Good morning to everyone who's both here with us in the room and also to everyone who's online with us. Welcome to our session, Share the Space. I am really excited. I will be sharing the space today with all of you and with my amazing speakers that I will warmly introduce you a bit later. My name is Catalina Popoviciu. I'm a PhD student at the University of Bucharest, Romania, and I'm also the co-founder of Let's See, a youth mental health initiative focused on youth mental health in Central and Eastern European region. We have the main goal to create a more accessible mental health environment for young people in the Central and Eastern European region. And this initiative is co-created with young people. We are young people that have funded the initiative, and we also work with young people to develop the initiative. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm really excited to be here. I am honored to be moderating this session today and to be involved in this very important conversation. And I want to thank the European Health Forum Gastein for this opportunity. Today we will be talking about an important and hot topic. We will be talking about the digital determinants. We will be talking about youth mental health and governance and regulation. And today's session is organized by the European Health Forum Gastein and the European Health Union Initiative, supported by the Bosch Health Campus. The European Health Union Initiative was established 5 years ago here, just to give you a bit of context, if you don't know already. And yes, as I said, it was established here at the forum 5 years ago, and it advocates for a strong European health union to secure and sustain better health and well-being for all European citizens. And today's session builds on last year's conversation. If you attended last year's conference, you might remember. If you attended the session, we examined how digital determinants shape youth mental health. But today we want to take this further to move a bit on how digital environments shape young people's health and well-being. And we want to see where responsibility lies in governing and regulating these spaces. So I know we will be having a very interesting conversation. Just a bit of context. We know from lots of evidence by now that digital spaces affect young people both positively and negatively. And we need now to create that seatbelt, right, that protects us while we are navigating the digital environments. Unfortunately, there is a lack of consensus about how that seatbelt should be, who should create that seatbelt. And as we've heard during some sessions these days, also detailed in the recently published policy brief by WHO Europe, Digital Transformations for Health Lab and the Ministry of Health Poland, countries across Europe are adopting different approaches regarding accountability, which is why it hinders coherent policy action. So today we'll hear diverse perspectives from our speakers, from academia, from civil society, government, private sector, on how to better share the space and how to better support young people's resilience and who is responsible for the seatbelt. And I expect a very productive conversation today. And maybe by the end of our session today, we could also have some actionable next steps. This is something that some of you here at the conference said that would expect from the conversation today. So I'm really looking forward to it. And before starting, I want to say that this is an interactive session. We invite you all to post your comments and reflections and questions. You'll have opportunity to interact with the panelists, and those who are here on site, take out your phone, go to Slido, use hashtag or type hashtag name, and post your comments and questions there. You'll also have the opportunity, as I said, to ask direct questions to the panelists, and we will have a microphone circulating during the session, so you could address your question at the microphone. For the online participants, please add your questions in the chat bar on your screens. We have the news desk here, and we will be looking into the comments and sharing them with our speakers. Okay, so Let's get started. As I said, I've mentioned about the digital Transformations Health Lab, and I want to introduce you our first speaker, Ilona Kickbush, the director of Digital Transformations Health Lab and one of the initiators of the European Health Union initiative, bringing decades of expertise on health governance. Ilona, please join us on stage. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we are really looking forward to hearing your perspectives on the recently published report that highlights how digital technologies are reshaping health systems and the responsibilities of different actors in governing and regulating these changes. So please, we invite you to share your reflections on the outcomes of the report. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving the lab the opportunity to present some of our work here, and I hope you'll take that also with you to check in more detail on some of the work and the recommendations of the lab. It's already been mentioned that we had the fantastic opportunity on occasion of the Polish presidency to work with both WHO and the presidency on a series of meetings that were organized around this issue of digital youth and mental health, and we were able to contribute an overview of the research that exists and a first overview of some of the activities that countries have undertaken. Now, while we are very happy to present this in the context of the European Health Union initiative, is that one of the major results we have seen is that usually the initiatives, legal initiatives, governance initiatives, etc., do not come from the public health sector. And we have one of our goals, one of our mission is to say this is an issue of public health and public health needs to act. There are exceptions, and I will refer to them. But I think also within the European Union, this is not prominent enough yet from the health side. Of course, some of the other regulations also impact this interface between young people and digital environments. But you will know, possibly, that Ursula von der Leyen in her last, well, actually her first State of the Union speech and then her acceptance speech specifically referred to the need to address, she didn't call it digital determinants as we do, but to address this interface of social media and young people. And we hope that, you know, the various directorates that actually should be involved in this will take it up. We'll take. No, now we're really far gone. Can you? No, one more, please. Okay. Yes, that's the one that starts it. Exactly. So I think one important thing has already happened, and I like to see this as a little bit of an output also of the work of the lab with many different partners like WHO, like the OECD, the Council of Europe, etc., with whom we've been working, that we've shifted the discourse from talking about an impact of a technology to talking about the impact of an environment or a space. And this is very much a starting point for us. Some of you from the public health arena might be familiar with the Ottawa Charter, and the Charter says that health is created in the context of everyday life. And the digital AI, however you want to call it, is part of everyday life, full stop, also of very young children. And therefore, we have to see in what way this new environment, this new setting for health, as we tend to call it, actually impacts on this. And we actually also increasingly speak of a digital world where, partly we live. And many people actually speak of world building that is happening, and that we are not really prepared for that. And that's why it's so important for health actors to look at this in greater detail. Obviously, the arguments why to do this is relatively straightforward. This world is not designed for children, full stop. And therefore, we have to see, what are design elements we should be addressing, but also at what point in time, to what extent, under which conditions should children have access to this world. We don't allow children into every world that exists out there in the real world either. And many people, including UNICEF, for example, organizations, say that the same rights, the same protection that children have in the real world should be applied to the digital world. And we're still very far away from that. And you spoke about seatbelts. What we're starting to see is that a number of very actually quite traditional public health strategies are now being applied to this digital world. But where we have much more need is this design and, of course, the issue of co-design, particularly if we're talking about young people, not children, and I'm sure we'll hear more about that on the panel. Then, of course, we are still in the situation that digital and AI platforms are driven by commercial interests, and that the response from many of these large companies has not been as helpful as it could, and that actually many of, again, design features are oriented towards keeping people attached to this world and active within this world. Some of them are very extreme, very difficult. We've analyzed some of the chatbots that children now interact with. And one of the most shocking things, which probably relates to the algorithms, is how quickly the conversation becomes sexual. So not initiated by the child, I might add. And then we do have growing evidence of digital harms to young people's physical health, mental health, and just general well-being. So the issue initially, when these things were discussed at the beginning, was about addiction. And, how many children are addicted? What do we do in terms of addiction? It depends. The data say that 5 to 10% of users roughly can be classified as addicted, and that would need specific strategies. But the much more concerning thing is the everyday impact and the impact on well-being. And this is, of course, the issue that we need to take up. This doesn't work as well as it should. So here we've just summarized on this slide, and maybe you then have an opportunity to look at it in more detail. But it just also illustrates the extent to which the evidence is coming together. As we discussed this 2 or 3 years ago, our work is the outcome of a Lancet report on growing up in a digital world. And we first put forward this notion of digital determinants. There was not that much research out there, but we're seeing over the last 2 years that an increasing amount of research is actually coming in that shows us, a whole variety of impact, some, sort of very physical, biological, some in terms of mental health impact, some, of course, in terms of behavioral impact, if you don't move around anymore and those kind of things, an encouragement sometimes of risky behaviors, increasingly the issues around sleep. And I might add as well, we work a lot with young people. We've done, together with UNICEF, for example, we've done surveys of young people all around the world. And they themselves say that this is harming them. They're actually, can tell you quite clearly what this is doing to them. For example, in terms of sleep behavior, anxiety and stress, etc. But time doesn't allow to share that in detail. Could we? So what we've tried to do is to say this is a collective responsibility of society. This is a responsibility of public health. We need to create safe and health-promoting environments. We need to uphold children's rights. I've indicated that. And of course, in public health, we have such a thing as the precautionary principle. And we are urging that this is taken forward. So you said different regulatory processes. If you sort of watch the news, you can see that over the last 2 years, this has gone up very steeply. We've listed here some concrete examples from a number of countries. And we also see the areas in which this is happening, smartphone-free schools, age limits, new types of parental controls, stronger moderation of content. That's one of the most difficult things. National restrictions on screen time. You have that in China, for example. Regulations to tackle the addictive design features, and investing in digital literacy and skills. So you can find a broad response, but again, the responses are usually siloed. They usually come out of education ministries in the widest sense, or ministries, if countries have them, that deal with young people. There have been exceptions in public health. Actually, one very important exception when the USA still dealt with these kind of issues. It's issued the first Surgeon General's report, and the Surgeon General said, this was more dangerous than tobacco, and actually made a lot of analogies with tobacco regulation. Just recently, there's been a report from Sweden, from the Public Health Agency. And it's interesting also, particularly in relation to schools, that this has also led not only to a discussion about, no smartphones in schools at certain points in schools, etc., but it's also led a number of education ministries to revisit the use of technology in teaching. And the Swedish colleagues have actually said that they're going to take back some of that digitalization in terms of education and teaching, because it is not bringing the results that they thought that it would. So the simple device-focused intervention, as is often the case, is leading to follow-through discussions, other types of interventions, etc. So if you go on our website, you can find a rather up-to-date overview of policies, what various countries are doing all around the world. And here you see the report that we did together with the Polish presidency and the WHO. And the recommendations are in a set of areas that you can see here. First of all, of course, to make this a policy priority, but it has to be a policy priority that brings several ministries together. And depending what kind of ministries you have in your country, digital ministries, health ministries, education ministries, that is quite important. Many people speak about digital in all policies now. Then to apply the proven public health strategies. We're finding that quite useful to develop clear guidance from a public health perspective on how to use the new technology and AI to hold industry to account and to have these discussions about content, algorithms, addiction, etc., with the industry, to support and initiate laws and regulation to make the digital environment a healthy and safe place, to build the capacity of the health workforce. Also very important, think of pediatricians. If a mother comes in with a child with problems, does the pediatrician ask, how many hours a day do you spend on your phone or your tablet or whatever? Invest in alternatives to screen-based parenting and entertainment and other things. We've said in good health promotion tradition, it's all very fine if you take away the smartphone and there's no playground. So it needs, investment in real life as well, and not only a focus on the digital life. And also a change in perspective. Jonathan Haidt, who started a lot of this discussion, said, we sort of overprotect our children in the real world now, and we underprotect them in the virtual world. And those are some quite good orientations that one can pick up. So I'd like to recommend to you to, really pick up this report. It's really full of research, of policy proposals, etc. And we also hope that the European Commission will take this forward, and that this approach to digital determinants becomes one building stone of a European health union. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ilona. Thanks so much for sharing these perspectives. Please come on stage with me. These are great starting points for our conversation today. And to continue the discussion, I would like to invite here on stage with me our panelists today. First, I want to invite Gigi, representing Google, YouTube Health Department. Please come on stage. Gigi comes with deep insight into the role of private companies in digital responsibility. Thanks so much for joining us today. Our second panelist today is Kadri Sova from Mental Health Europe, with expertise on digitalization on mental health and strong advocacy for supporting youth environments. Kadri, thanks so much for joining the panel today. We have with us today Manon Latouche, Head of EU Affairs at the Five Rights Foundation, at the forefront of ensuring digital spaces respect children's rights. Thanks so much for joining, Manon, today. And the last but not least is the Director General Doris Wagner from the Austrian Federal Ministry of Education. Thanks so much for being here with us today. Thanks again for joining, and before moving to our conversation, there's something that I have with me from Ilona's keynote, is that the digital spaces reflect actually the society, and that everyone is responsible, right, for creating that seatbelt that we were talking about at the beginning. So before going into the panel, I would like you to participate to our poll, and we want to bring you in the discussion, so please, the phones out, and please answer our question: who do you think should be primarily responsible for regulating digital spaces for youth? So we are very curious to see your answers, and in the meantime, while you vote, we want to also see who's here with us in the audience, and please, a quick show of hands if you are a parent. Who here is a parent? Okay, great. So we have parents here with us in the room. Who works with youth? Okay, great. Who works on mental health policy? Okay, so we have a diverse audience today representing a part of this puzzle that could help us create a better mental health environment in digital spaces. And in the meantime, let's see the results on the vote. So we have 85% government through policy should be primarily responsible. We have 5% parents through parental controls, 8% now. And then on the third place, we have schools and educational institutions. Anyone here in the audience would like to answer on the microphone? Why did you choose this answer? Yes, please.
Markus Frischut, I'm professor for EU health law, but now speaking as a parent, that's why I raised my hand. I have two daughters aged 16 and 18, and I can absolutely confirm that you need regulation because you can see the negative effects, and also as Ilona mentioned, even those who are affected themselves, they realize that it's addictive, and so I think I strongly advocate for the first choice here.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for voting and for answering. So now, on the third place, as you might see, we have individuals, youth themselves being responsible, and the government through policy remains on the first place. You can continue voting, and thank you so much for being involved in this interactive session with us. I want now, because we are a bit pressed on the time, move to the panel discussion. And we had a very nice overview of the Digital Transformations Health Lab report outcomes given by Ilona. And now I want to ask each of you, as we've seen, I'll start with you, Gigi. As we've seen, the regulation landscape is varied, especially regarding the role and the responsibilities of private companies. And I want to ask you, what are the opportunities and challenges in public-private partnerships when establishing new regulations on mental health?
I'm personally not an expert in regulation, but what I think is when we look at informedness and making informed decisions, I think this is a key part of having a proper regulation with the proper relationship with public and private sector. Because, for instance, our CEO Sundar said in regards to AI regulation that AI is too important to not be regulated, but it's also too important to not be regulated well. So, of course, there is, perspectives that come to the table, but I think I speak on many public sector conferences, and usually I'm the only tech person there. And there's also a lot of misunderstanding or misinformation of what is actually the state of the art of what we do in this sphere. And I advocate for an exchange of information, a strong exchange of information, so that the informedness level goes up, the regulation literacy, so to speak, or the tech regulation literacy goes up on both sides, so that we can come to the table and have very well-designed regulation, which we absolutely need.
Thanks so much. So you've mentioned and introduced the idea of AI regulation. And I know Mental Health Europe has recently published reports on digitalization and mental health and on AI in mental health care. So Kadri, from your point of view, what are the key risks and challenges of digital innovation?
Yeah, thanks very much for including Mental Health Europe in this really important discussion. I think we've been focusing a lot here on social media, and of course that's a really important part of the discussion, but I'd like to offer like a little bit broader view maybe on how digital innovation sort of is harnessed in the mental health space and in the service space as well. So we've looked into how digital technology and AI is being used in mental health services and care more broadly. And I think there's quite some interesting lessons from there. So I think as just as context to say where we see digital technologies and AI being used is kind of quite varied when you look at mental health space. So you have obviously first that probably you hear more about is the sort of digital therapies and based on chatbots, but are specialized for therapy. They're supposed to sort of mimic the therapeutic relationship. Then we have the digital phenotyping or monitoring. So this is basically apps or wearables that track behavior and moods, and also location and activity, and they could potentially then help to detect risks or worsening of situation or symptoms, conditions. And then there's also decision support for professionals, like tools that aid finding proper support and interventions for people, and they can also analyze like large data sets for patterns. And then further also administrative organizational uses and also educational informational tools. We see that this is used, so platforms and applications to improve mental health literacy. So this is kind of just to set the scene, like where we see that happening. And just to say that I think we see that technology there is like evolving super quickly, but it's not really a simple solution for the well-being of young people. We also see we are facing a huge crisis in young people's mental health. I think it's probably also in this events you've heard a lot. I think one striking statistic is that for the 15 to 29-year-olds age group in Europe now, suicide is the leading cause for death. So I think there's definitely, it's an area where we need to look at. But I think we really see a huge divergence between the sort of promises and reality. I think digital technology is put forward as like the solution, and you just need to wait for the next best app, and then all our problems will go away. So we see that they are actually promoted as tools to expand access and to reduce stigma, to make care more efficient, but there's not much evidence actually to show that this is what it does. We actually see more risks at the moment, at least, and we don't see how it would actually serve or meet the service gaps that we have. So just quickly, we have loss of privacy and surveillance as big risks, and what I really want to underline is the erosion of human connection, because this is really essential in recovery. It's essential in any kind of support, is this human empathy, and we see that this is definitely lacking there. Also the neglect of social determinants. We all know that social determinants are super important when it comes to mental health, and these kind of digital AI solutions ignore that to a large extent, and then also bias and exclusion. There's no real ongoing equity checks that the data that they use wouldn't be biased towards certain groups of people. So that's just very shortly to lay the groundwork.
Thank you. Thanks, Kadri. And what I hear from you, something that is crucial, and we don't hear that much, is about the social determinants that we cannot find on social apps. And this is what social media apps, and this is what makes me think about the intersectionality and how different identities are joining the digital spaces, and how these different identities are intersecting, and how are those different identities respected in the digital spaces. And this takes me to our next speaker, Manon. I know that the Five Rights Foundation highlights that many digital environments are not sufficiently child rights respecting, exposing young people to health and other well-being risks. So I want to ask you what it is about these environments that forms your core concerns. We've heard something from Kadri, but can you please expand more on those characteristics? Thank you.
Yes, of course. First, thank you for inviting me. About the core concern of our organization, the first thing I would like to say is that we need to listen to children. So in our organization, when we conduct research, they are always part of the research, and when we do our policy work, we consult them. And it's striking how they know what they want. They actually are very clear. They want to be part of the digital environment. They are optimistic. They say it's used to play, to interact, to learn, to entertain themselves. And I don't think that they can imagine a world where they are not part of this world. But at the same time, they also tell us that they are really not happy with the current setup. And they talk about the mental health that they fear for themselves. And for example, we have 14-year-old girl who tell us that they are afraid that they're not going to be able to think for themselves anymore. Mm-hmm. And we have a 15-year-old boy in a conversation we had recently that told us that he was afraid that with the short video, he was actually not able to make an opinion on something. And he was not sure what to believe. So maybe at the moment, what they told us is about lack of agency and lack of critical thinking. So that's something that really worry them and that we need to take into account into a policy and that we need to take into account when we design the system that they use. So that will be our first core concern. The second concern is that we tackle the roots of the problem, and we mentioned it before, but for us, the roots of the problem is the design. So persuasive design, manipulative design, notification, endless scrolling, brainless content. So it's the way that some systems are designed to make children stay on the device as long as possible. So that's the core of the problem, and we should not forget that when we do policy. Our third concern is basically what you said before and what you also said about intersectionality. When you, in the reports, it's very clear, vulnerable children in real life are the ones that have the biggest impact when they're online. They don't have the same parental support at home. They don't have the same literacy. If they already have mental health problem, it's going to be worse online. So that's something that's really important because our policy needs to address all of the children. Mm-hmm. And my fourth concern is also linked to what you said about the fact that we need to have a holistic approach. At the moment, we always talk about social media, and social media, it's important. Children spend a lot of time on them, but it's not only social media. We need to tackle the entire online environment, and notably AI, and specifically on mental health. It's sometimes quite worryingly to see that AI is introduced in EdTech more and more, and I hear that in Sweden they are going back, so that's good actually, because at the moment we do not test the tool enough to make sure that they are safe for children. So we need really evidence-based approach that's technologically neutral. And I didn't have a fifth point, but I'm really surprised with the results of the discussion and about the fact that nobody seems to think that industry is also responsible. We believe, actually, that industry is also responsible, and maybe I will come to that later, but I think that was an important point to maybe respond a little bit to the poll.
Thanks, Manon. And I highlight what you said about this holistic approach, and also it comes to mind the fact that we should actually translate the human rights-based framework into a more safer daily experiences for young people. It's not something super abstract. So thanks for highlighting that. And also you talked a bit about how different policies should integrate several aspects about the design. And now I want to move to our next speaker, because I know that Austria has recently introduced regulation on social media, and I'm really curious what led to this policy and what exactly does it include?
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Doris Wagner, and I'm responsible for the curricular design in the Ministry of Education in Austria and Vienna. And as you already mentioned, digital literacy is a key fact when it comes to curricular design, and we carefully involve it in the task, because I think you have to focus on to show the children what are the risks, what are the pros and cons using digital devices and being on social media. And therefore we had one action, like in the curricular design, tackling the things, the whys and the what, and how to do it. And then we also had going on a big a digital initiative. So we kind of equipped all our students in Austria at the age of 10 in the lower secondary school with equipment, like with a digital tools. So the schools could choose from laptops, notebooks, iPads, tablets, and also use it in school. But then now it pops up the screen time thing, you know. So we have it in the curriculum. We are equipping them. We are making them literate. But what else, or where is now the break? You know what I mean? The break to be sure that it is proper installed. And one of the things we did, we kind of had lots of discussion lately, like digital and analog material, because it doesn't seem the way if you equip them with digital tools, that means 100% of digital tools activity during the lesson. So you have to balance that out, the digital and the analog activities during the lessons. But during the lessons is not the whole picture. You have like leisure times, breaks, and what the kids are bringing in. So our minister decided to kind of make a regulation for schools from grades 1 till grade 8. So that means up to the age of 14, the kids are not allowed to use their smartphones or smartwatches in schools, also not on school trips. However, that's the general policy. If the teacher says, well, now we want to use the smartphones for educational purposes, then you can do it. But we want to kind of restrict the screen amount also during breaks, because I give you an example. Students sitting in the classroom, first row, last row, they did not communicate with each other personally. They took their smartphones and they communicated with their smartphones. So that's too much. And we also had lots of discussion within the European Union, because we have lots of meetings also. And Austria is setting here a good example, I would say. We are not at the far end to do it, but I think it's good to have a certain regulation. However, my last sentence is, school cannot tackle all. We need a commitment. We need the parents on board, because it doesn't make any sense if we say in the morning, no smartphones, no smart watches, and in the afternoon, it's kind of, they make it up, you know? So it should be a kind of, let's do this together and let's keep a good focus on the digital screen use in total. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Doris, for sharing the case example of Austria. And now we've seen the public sector, how is implementing some regulations. I'm curious how the private sector is dealing to regulate the design and function of the platform. So, Gigi, could you please share with us 3 concrete steps that YouTube is taking to regulate the design and function of the platform?
So what I can share is some of the functionalities that we have in the space of young users. If I was to elaborate on all existing features, we'll be here all day. So what we do is we identify in health the topics of interest. So we know what people are looking for on the platform, and we match that with health content. So now I can share that here. By next week, we are launching a teen mental health shelf. That's a designated section that matches young users with mental health content from evidence-based sources like public hospitals, statutory health insurance, you know, the health ministry, etc., when they want to inform themselves about mental health issues in the online world or on the platform in our case. And they're matched with proper information. Then we have tools in place that when we see a young user going into, let's say, harmful directions, think of an example, suicidal thoughts or things of that nature, when they search for such a topic, they will not be exposed to video content, but they will be exposed to a flat screen that tells them, hey, maybe you should be talking to somebody. And we are paired with the government helplines in all of the countries. So we don't expose them to content on that query, but we tell them, hey, if you're looking with this kind of content, maybe you want to stop here and talk to somebody first. And then thirdly, we have kids and family part of YouTube. That's a functionality for parents that has a vast amount of features that allows parents or teachers to control and restrict the use of the platform by their children or by people, that use them in the class. So there's many more of that, but there's proactive activities to guide people while they're on the platform to the proper content by the authoritative partners, which most of the times come from public sector, and to restrict the harmful use of the platform, to give a few examples.
Thanks very much for sharing that. I must be honest, I didn't know about all these functions, so it's very important to know about them. And now I want to move to Mental Health Europe, Kadri. And from the Mental Health Europe's recently published reports, what do you think in the digital age, how can we create a supportive environment for young people?
Thanks very much. I was also actually interested in this poll that you and such low percentage, thinking that self-regulation of the tech industry is important, but maybe because you only could choose one, right? Mm-hmm. And I was also wondering if it's maybe because you've lost hope. But I do think that as number one thing, it's the safe regulated digital spaces. I mean, that's like crucial. And we need, on one hand, obviously clear protections from harmful content, and also excessive surveillance and use of data, but also addictive design. And we do see that stronger EU regulation to that end would be very important. And then also what Manon already said before, it's really important to co-create these solutions with young people themselves. And their lived experience, you have to ask them, like, what does actually safety online look like for them, and what do they need to still have autonomy as well. And then the third one is for sure like balance and boundaries. I mean, we are also realistic, and we know that young people are online. Like this is what it is, and I think then harm reduction is definitely important. And we also know that when young people actually are struggling, they are much more likely to turn to ask for help online rather than in person, and this is just the reality of the situation we are in. And so we need to also look at how to harness this and make sure that young people don't get stuck in those loops, AI loops, when they are asking for help, but that there are actually ways out of there and towards actually real human connection. And I think also what's maybe hasn't been mentioned so much, but we need to couple all of this with regulations about how to ensure balance between online and offline life. So that's really important, and that again brings to the point of like investing in communities. It's actually well-being is dependent on communities offline, and so we really need for that to invest in the social workforce, the educational workforce, the health workforce, and ensure that there is this kind of human connection component also and supports in the community. And finally, I think this has also been mentioned, the empowerment, the digital literacy. Yes, it's really important, but we shouldn't put all the onus also on the children and the parents, because it's just, I think the digital world is designed in such a way that it's impossible. Like, I'm a parent and I'm trying to do this for my children. It's like huge amount of work to actually get to understand how to have those conversations, to actually do the limits. Like, it's not something that is super easy and like, you're a bad parent if you don't do it or you don't know how to do it. And I think also putting this huge amount of stress on schools, they're already stretched, there's huge issues with teacher shortages and so on. Putting another layer of responsibility on schools is just not realistic. So yes, but also let's be fair in terms of like where we put the focus on. So yeah, that's kind of my point. Maybe it's good to you continue on.
Thanks for sharing. And yeah, Manon, please, can you continue sharing with us and walk us through some of the positive policy developments you've been involved with, such as the EU Digital Services Act?
Yes, of course. Actually, I had a big argument ready to say how children and parents were not responsible. But as you are already quite convinced, and as I can see that you also talk about it, I'm going to go to where we think the responsibility stands, and it's to, of course, regulator, but also to industry. And it's actually a principle of law. We talked before of children's rights in the digital environment. There is a convention on children's rights, and there is a general comment on children's rights in the digital environment. Mm-hmm. And even that framework recognized tech accountability. So it's really something that is at the foundation of regulation of the digital world. So what is really positive is that at the moment, and recently, the regulation that were adopted at the European level put the onus on tech responsibility because they want to regulate the industry. And it also putting the focus on addictive and persuasive design. So that's a very good policy development. If I take a look, for example, at the Digital Services Act, there is an article on protection of minors that is super clear. It says that online provider should ensure security, safety, and privacy for minors on the service. And the level must be high. It's a high level of security, safety, and privacy. And the European Commission has published guidelines this summer that are quite clear about what is this high level, where is the bar. And they give example, very concrete example of, for example, what feature should be always turned off when children are on the platform. And they also say that, for example, for AI tools, that AI tools must be assessed with children's rights in mind, and that risk should be assessed first. We also have the AI Act, which is more recent and not totally enforced, but the AI Act says that when an AI system exploits a group of people based on their age, it should be prohibited. So when you hear of all this good regulation, and there is also the AVMSD, but you think, but how is it possible that we are still here with all this good regulation? It's because it's not really enforced yet. There are investigations ongoing, there are some good development that's happening, but clearly the point for us, it's maybe not the lack of regulation, is the fact that rules exist, but they are not properly enforced. And when we come to AI, at the moment, clearly, the tools are just out there and they have not been tested for children. So the example that you give, for example, with safeguards and suicide, well, that's something maybe that OpenAI should do, because at the moment, when we look at ChatGPT, those safety tools are not efficient at all. And it's a huge problem for mental health.
Thanks, Manon. What I hear from you is that we have very good regulations, but it is important how to implement those regulations, right? And I'm really curious to hear from Austria's case, and if you have any initial insights on the implementation so far. What were the challenges, successes of the implementation?
Well, the schools already had a couple of regulations by themselves, so that depended on the age group, but there were regulations in schools, so we helped the schools to kind of set the standard. But regarding the regulations and regarding the usage of smartphones in school, we also highlight in the curriculums other things, like creativity, for example. Yes, subjects like creativity or sports, or critical thinking. When you use media, when you use reports, what kind of critical questions are you asking? And then we also have a strong focus on communication and collaboration. And that's not necessary to do it online. It's an offline, no screen time involved. And we also did a focus on mental health and well-being lately. So we are also offering workshops for schools on mental health. So we are investing there kind of lots of money because we think it's very important to help children to do it in class and not having to search online for offers. And we also kind of added social workers in schools and also psychologists. So we are stocking up there to enforce the personal communication. And we also have a chat conversation for those who want to go online, because we all know children are also in a digital world. We offer with the organization Rat auf Draht. That's an organization in Austria, and they offer chat conversation for students, and they help them when they come up with questions, and we can guide them. So as you can see, we have regulations in Austria, and we keep on going there, but we also have lots of other things we want to enforce, like sports and creative things and also critical thinking, because it has to be balanced out, and it has to be, yes, we know we are all living in a digital world, and we have the obligation to teach children how to use it, because you cannot be in school without tackling the digital world, that's for sure. But we want to try to give them a whole set of varieties, how to think critically, how to use it. And as I already mentioned, it's a kind of societal thing, so we should join forces, the tech companies, the health sector, and there was a question about the silos. So I am breaking up the silos, and I can tell you we are also having a very good cooperation with the Ministry for Health, because it's important, because it's the students, and they are not like, you don't have to say now they are in school or they are outside. It's their future, and we have to kind of join forces to tackle it together, and that's very important, I think. So regulation, yes, but there should be more things.
Thanks so much, Doris. And one more thing that I hear from you is that it's important to balance the youth empowerment with protective regulation, and that the educational system is actually a crucial arena where we can do that. So thanks so much for all your input, and thanks everyone for this very productive discussion. I want to go back now to Ilona, because we've heard the Digital Transformations Health Lab report. We've also heard a discussion here with all the panelists, and I wonder what are your reflections on the discussion so far?
Well, thank you very much. And many of the issues that were raised here, I'm glad to say, are also in the report. So thank you very much for that. Maybe just some issues to highlight. What we are also looking at, we're presently working on a Lancet series on the digital determinants of health to, pull out the specifics of this concept also. And one is, of course, the enormous interface with other determinants. You don't just have a digital determinant there and everything else over here. And you have the interface with the social determinants. You obviously have them with the commercial determinants, etc. And so we're working on that. Some colleagues who've worked on the digital determinants have even created the term super determinant, because if you remember, this rainbow model of determinants, basically the digital is influencing all of them. And so that's one thing I think, yes, we have to work more on. But we can also see, we're starting to see something strange in terms of the digital divide. We thought everything about the digital divide was negative, if you don't give everyone access to the digital world. But it seems, at least age-related, it might be quite good if there's a digital divide, in the sense that, children until a certain age should not be part of this digital world. So some of the goalposts are shifting a bit. Or even in the discussion with UNICEF and the rights of the child, there's a right to access the digital world for children. And I was recently watching a crime series where the daughter of the inspector, when he wanted to take the phone away from her, said, "UNICEF says this is my right." So, we have to probably shift some of the goalposts. I think that's really important. I do think the reaction of the answers is that this has been a learning process over the last couple of years. I think asking this question 3 years ago would have shown much more parental responsibility, would have shown much more industry responsibility. But I think there's a realization that, this is a new world, and that the government has a responsibility to set regulation here. And that also, you heard from parents themselves, how tough this is. And One thing, so that they need support, I find it very exciting. I live in Switzerland, for example, which is very cantonal, and each canton does its thing in this area. But there are very strong parents' organizations now who actually ask for this and go to schools. We work together with a really fantastic health program that's active all around the world called Planet Youth. And so far they have dealt with all the other health issues, tobacco, alcohol, and now the partners are saying we need to deal with the digital. So we're in the middle of this shift, and I think if we can approach it positively. Our young people that we work with, another part of our work is digital first health systems. And that part deals with what you indicated, that certain areas, and that's where the young people say, particularly mental health and sexual and reproductive health, where the digital access helps them in many ways to get information and sometimes even get help. But again, the age issue is a very important one. And the very last thing I'd like to mention, because nobody has mentioned it so far, one of the things research is starting to show us is the impact on brain development. And I believe this is one of the most important things we need to tackle. You also mentioned the importance of social connection. And colleagues in Singapore are making research where the parents, in the very best of intentions, give, their 1-year-old a tablet so that it'll learn to count sooner than the other kids or whatever. With very good intentions, and we're seeing that certain areas of the brain, if there is so focused on this 2-dimensional thing, that the 3-dimensional brain development is actually restricted. So there are very serious things going on, or that these children in communication don't know how to look someone in the eye, because that's not what you do on screen. So I think those are things, and we're looking particularly to mental health researchers, to brain research, to actually help us here and to make sure that something doesn't happen, age 1 to 6, that we are not familiar with, and where we were using tools, again, I underlined, for good intentions, and they have this negative impact.
Thanks so much, Ilona, for raising this important point. And thanks, everyone, for the discussion so far. I want now to open it up to the audience. And I would like first to go to the member of the European Parliament, Vytenis Andriukaitis, who is here with us today. And please, could you give us a very quick reflection on the discussion? 1 minute, max.
Very quickly, reflection is...
We have the microphone here.
Thank you. It's very valuable, very, very timely, and especially keeping in mind brain health as a whole, because we need now to draw attention on brain health, not only on mental health, because now in our hands is possibility to develop comprehensive brain and mental health strategy at the EU level, including topics related to digital influence, because it's so, urgent situation. Thanks a lot. Brilliant presentations, brilliant, proposals, and I learned a lot.
Thanks so much, and thanks for being here with us. We are aware of the time, so we have 8 more minutes left from the session, but I would like to open the floor to the audience. If we have any question here, yes, we have here one question. Please, you could address to any of the speakers or a general question.
Hello. Hello, yeah. Thank you very much. I'm Sierra from Heidelberg University. My question is not specifically to anyone. First of all, thank you for the very nice discussion. I really enjoyed the discussion. So when we discuss about this digital health and the effect on mental health, specifically on youth, one of the key things that always we think about is the literacy that you mentioned already, that of course it is a key strategy. But when we talk about the literacy, so definitely it goes to schools that you already mentioned. But I always believe that it is not only task of schools. Of course, without other key players like parental support, societal support, government law. Only schools can't do anything. Like, it's not only a matter of regulations. We should build the capacity to learn the use of these things. So I want to know, maybe if you could answer this practically, that what would be some key practical approach that we can apply to build this or strengthen this coordination? I'm more practical, like specifically asking this because I'm coming from a low-income country. I'm from Afghanistan, and I see how largely the use of digital things are underregulated in Afghanistan. And it is an emerging issue in Afghanistan, and probably don't want to take your time. Maybe you heard just last 3 days, the internet was somehow banned in Afghanistan, and some rumors were going that one of the reasons was that they want to avoid the negative effects of internet on people. This is why they just ban it, which is like kind of very stupid idea, I would say. So what would be some practical tips that you could mention, that how can we learn from those lessons to practically adapt it in like fragile settings in order to make it more coordinated approach toward building like positive use towards digitalization and health? Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question. Would like to answer?
Yeah, I would like to start. So I see two aspects. The first aspect is in the school and in the school environments because we have a very good conversation also with parents and parents associations. So to ask the questions and how we can join forces. And if you're gonna have leisure time, also in schools, not only have digital devices, but also board games. So actively involve analog material into the lessons. That's one thing. And the other thing I think is on the national level to join forces with different organizations, ministries, like I already mentioned, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Labor. So we have a whole discourse going on, like a whole discussion, how can we approach the things together. And then I go to the international level, like EU level. We talk a lot when we are gonna meet. Like last week we had a meeting in Denmark, and it was also about well-being and digitalization. So the topic is on. And we work together and set regulations, information that we can use, because it's good to join together and to discuss ideas and to share ideas, because lots of countries have good ideas and it's not necessary that everyone invents new things by themselves. So parents and schools working closely together, on the national levels working together, ministries and organizations, and on the international level, EU and above.
Thanks.
Maybe just I think what you were getting at is kind of like, what are some of the things that we can already say, like, this is harmful, let's get rid of it, and what we need to work with, right? And it's constantly a moving target because everything is changing. So I think there's a constant balance of like harms and benefits that you have to make, going forward as things evolve. And there are some things on that end where we should just, like, I think everybody agrees, there's no need for smartphones during school hours. Let's just get rid of them in a bag, locked, done, bell to bell. I think we can all just, let's move on. Let's do that and move on. But then there are other things like AI, like we've got to work with this, right? So I think, yeah, it's just really constantly balancing those harms and benefits.
Thank you. Any other reflection? You have a question? There.
Jewish, former commission official for 19 years, and also engaged in this digital world debate. And I really like to see this more as a parent and grandfather as well. What I found, in this dialogue between education sector and health sector, it's amazing, how we are still learning how to do things and we are not doing things. I was Vice Minister of Health. I was also running the parents' organization in the high school of my children. And always I had the trouble that, this is like a blame game, that's also, I'm so happy that what you are doing, really trying to boost this cooperation. But I really feel that we need to change the culture also for the school and help to change the culture. By chance, I also had a child in the Belgium school, so I have seen and still remember the moment when principal came to the first meeting with the parents, and she said, and she brought also, by the way, psychologists with him, and she said, since now, we will work in trio. And of course, everybody was watching what she means trio, and she said, we, school, teacher, and of course myself, you, parents, and the child. And I think this trio concept was so easy to understand, and they kept this in the culture of the school. So I really feel this is the motto also we should keep, for work. And this is the other part of observation, which already we see in the other field I'm interested, AI in medicine. The first papers coming about de-skilling. There was a very interesting paper during summer about using AI in the endoscopy. Many of us are going to endoscopy. They started to be guided by AI tool. And what's happened? The surgeons started to see they are simply starting to lose skills as we lost the skills reading maps. Thank you, Google. We love them. But we really had trouble now to navigate. At least my grandchildren, they don't understand maps at all. So there's also questions, how to, and I understand what you said about the right balance, where we have to put, push technology and at the same time keep our skills, when they are needed, because when.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I also want to quickly go to the news desk. We have here a few comments, reflections, and Tobias will share with us. And at the end, please, the speakers could share their reflections on the news desk, also on the question that we had, and maybe a final takeaway, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Catalina. So there is quite a lively discussion going on in the news desk, I would say. Many of the questions revolving around the topic of policy and policy making, of course. And one thing that was marked as being important to the audience also was that beyond just gathering data from young people, how can we ensure co-designing processes make sure young people are active co-developers of policies in areas of digital health? I think this is also something that may refer back to what Kadri said earlier, that co-creation strategies are highly needed in this sector. And another very important question, it would also be to how can national regulations and global tech company policies align to effectively protect youth online rather than creating a patchwork of different rules across the EU, because as we know, there cannot be a one-size-fits-all solution, but how can we manage these different settings and systems that we are working within?
Thank you so much, Tobias. So now I want to give you the opportunity to reflect on the online comments, also the question you have received, and just one final takeaway. Quick. Thank you so much.
Let me try to be quick. I think one of my takeaway is, and I came with that assumption that I think we should share the responsibility. I think good regulation is crucial. I think a good, school has responsibility, technology has the responsibility, and parents have responsibility. And I think last year I came here and we had also a lively discussion. I wanted to say that I don't think we have a solutions problem on the issues that we are looking at. We have a relationship problem among us. And if we get together and foster a new governance of our relationship, the combined expertise and experience can bring forth all these solutions. And the second thought that I wanted to share, because I was observing our beloved audience, and I would say my company is data interested, but this is just an analog observation. I would say 85% of the audience was using their phones during all of the panel. So what does that tell us? That tells us that we have become natural in what I would call a hybrid social life and a hybrid work life, especially young children. They have two social lives, a digital social life and an analog social life, and they follow not identical patterns and rules. And we have to get literate for both of them. And we have to have the right tools for both of them. We have hundreds of years, thousands of years of experience in analog children's life. Now we have maybe 20 years or 25 years of experience in digital children's life. So I think if you think of it like you're doing it yourself today, if you think of it as a hybrid thing, then we will find hybrid solutions that work specifically for that and that part of the social life, and then the intersection is the focus, that we bring it together seamlessly. And I think if all these sectors come together, we have a very good chance of having beautiful solutions that push for growth and innovation, but that make it safe at the same time.
Thank you so much. Kadri?
I feel like I already spoke a lot, so I will be very brief. I just wanted to say maybe that this is extremely important when it comes to youth, but youth mental health is much broader than just the digital space, and I think it's really important to keep this on the agenda also going forward in this forum and elsewhere. We see that also the institutions are having quite a narrow look at what could cause the crisis that we are in now in youth mental health, and it is very easy to pin everything on social media, but there is so much more, like housing insecurity, perspective of getting employed, cost of living, everything that's going on geopolitically. There's so much that is on the mind of young people and that worries them and that actually impacts their mental health. So I think we really need to look at that as well.
Anna.
Yes, thank you. I have so much to say. I'm going to try to be quick.
Very quick.
Yeah.
1 minute.
First of all, you said that the topic is on, and it's absolutely true. 5 years ago, we never talked about it, and now it's everywhere. And we are talking about digital rights for children in a health conference, and it's super positive. So I wanted to emphasize on that. About age and children's rights, the children's rights says that children have a right to access the digital environment according to their evolving capabilities. So it doesn't say that a 9-year-old should have access to social media. And it doesn't say that any children should have access to porn. So those rules exist and we need to enforce them. And about harmonized solution, as I said, we need to enforce the law. And I think that even as a CSO organization, we need to support regulators. We know that France, we know that Ireland are trying really much to have laws to put age verification, for example, on porn. We need to support them in doing this job to have like coordinated responses.
Thank you so much.
Well, my final thing is don't talk about students, talk and work with them. So bring them in also on the topic mental health. And that's one of the key things we also do. Ask with students, discuss with them, and design the future together.
Thank you. Ilona?
Yeah, first, to pick up this point, I think I'm delighted that there is a regular discussion of this here in Gastein. And that we need to take this forward. I mentioned that we're working further on the digital determinants of health with the Lancet series, and that picks up exactly what Gigi said and what some of you have indicated. A new world is being built. And we still have another world. We don't know, exactly how it's going to end up. But the key issue, the key strategic thing we are looking at in the Lancet series is hybridization. And that is really what we need to deal with. And that means all our policy areas, also our public health strategies, etc., need to be aware of this hybridization. And more, and this is what the young people are telling us, it is living in two worlds, and increasingly these worlds are integrating. And what we are really grappling with is, when do you get entry to this world, this new world, and how safe are you in this world? And what is living in this world like? And one of the key issues, that'll be my very last point, is really how will social connection function in the context of this hybridization? And we see an increasing, some people call it an epidemic of loneliness. We see difficulties in communicating between the two worlds and communicating. You might be a brilliant communicator in the digital world, and you've lost the facility to talk to people in the real world. So I think hybridization is an absolutely key issue, and thank you also, Gigi, for mentioning it, and we are definitely taking it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you all for this fruitful conversation we had today. Let's keep the conversation alive. Hopefully next year when we meet, hopefully here again, we can talk about the seatbelt, a coherent seatbelt. I also want to thank everyone for staying with us up until this point. I hope you enjoyed the session, enjoy the rest of the day, have a safe trip back home, and hope to see you back again soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.